Hello everyone, and welcome to the start of a new series of mine that I will be calling 3 Horrible Things That Can Happen to You in Space, SpellJammer Edition. For those of you thinking, since when does D&D have space stuff, and what's a SpellJammer? Here's some quick context for you. Space in D&D was introduced back in the early days of 2nd edition, and although a SpellJammer itself is a magical device that allows ships to fly through space, it is also the official name of the campaign setting for D&D in space. Starting off at number 1, being attacked by a Dream Slayer. Space is filled with a large amount of different types of monsters and other humanoid species. But, in my opinion, none of them are as terrifying as this thing. Something in the nature of wild space lets certain beings use dreams as portals, allowing them the chance to leave their immaterial world and walk in the real one. This entity searches for sleeping spelljammers and attacks them through their dreams. Think Freddy Krueger in space, but much worse. These beings usually appear shrouded in black and take on a twisted and evil-looking version of the victim's face with glowing white eyes. But sometimes, they also appear as simply whatever the victim fears the most, or in what many believe to be their true forms. A 7-foot-tall draconian lizard with 3-foot-long talons, glistening black scales, and a featureless glowing white oval for a face. When it's finally found a victim, it proceeds to slaughter everyone and everything in the dream until the dreamer itself is the last person alive. With its prey isolated, it morphs the landscape around them into a featureless gray void, and proceeds to attack the dreamer. From the moment it begins slaughtering the additional dreamfolk up until the final fight with the dreamer, this entity is continually trying to drain the intelligence of the victim. Although the dreamer has the option to fight back, they will end up being much safer if they just attempt to wake up. If they do succeed in waking up, it'll just take them anywhere from a few minutes to an hour to try to recover from a horrible nightmare. But if they should fail, if they should die within the dream, then the entity will fully take control of the victim's body for any number of days up to roughly 2 weeks, with one singular goal: to live. All they want is to experience everything that corporeal life forms have to offer. Love, anger, joy, excitement, food, and drink. They want to live it up for as long as possible. Although, to most of us they may seem normal after taking a victim, anyone with the detection spells can clearly see a body being inhabited by an alien mind. An alien mind that is very evil and very chaotic. When their time is up, the entity is hurled back into the astral plane, and the body of its victim collapses dead. The only hope for a victim is to have the entity exorcised from the body, forcing them back to where it came from. The victim will then instead just fall into a deep sleep with zero memory of the event, if they are saved. So little is known about these things that it's frightening. Although many consider them to be nothing more than just nightmarish parasites, it's good to know that while we are awake, we are as invisible to them as they are to us. Number 2, meeting the Grell. Although the previous entry is more of a personal struggle, this one is an issue on a galactic scale. The colonial spacefaring Grell are very different from their Earthbound counterparts. So much so that they consider their Earthbound kin as nothing more than food, along with practically every other race in existence. Although they are biologically similar, the main difference is their ability to communicate telepathically with each other, in addition to their society's pyramidal hierarchy. At the top of their society is only one, simply known as the Imperator. This lone Grell has the capability to unite all spacefaring Grell families into a single massive fighting force known as the Golden Legion. Together, they comb through wild space, conquering and consuming every world they find like a locust, they don't even use conventional spelljamming methods to fly through space. Through the effort of the Grill Patriarchs, each ship is capable of submerging into subspace to travel at great speeds. And when not submerged, their ships open up to consume the phlogiston and ignite it as fuel. So, in the long run, you wouldn't even see these guys coming if they wanted to attack your world. And due to their sheer numbers, if they did choose to come after your world, you'd better hope that the local deities of your world put in the effort to stop what's coming. Because if they don't kill you outright, you will be kept as cattle to be eaten later. And since brain matter is actually poisonous to them, they will most likely start by cracking your head open first to remove your brain before eating the rest of you. Number 3. Growing your own spirit warrior. Alright, now hear me out on this one. Although it's supposed to be an emotional experience for the individual, the end goal is a horrible thing to go through. But overall, it's a pretty unique thing to find out in space. Although they were originally made to be used by the elves during the Unhuman Wars, it's still possible to grow one for yourself after the fact. A spirit warrior is actually an enormous undead insect that you practically climb into and operate like a mecha suit. If you can imagine a 20-foot tall Gundam made of flesh, then you'd be pretty close. Now yes, they're practically big insect monsters on the battlefield, but the horrible part is actually growing them before using them. And when I say horrible, I don't mean the fact that they're just giant insects. I'm talking about the process that you yourself would have to go through. Although the eggs start out as roughly the size of a pinhead, the larva reaches final maturity after only a year. Now, during this time, the individual is required to form an emotional bond with this insect, the same way you would with any magical familiar or even your house pet. And after this first year is done, you as the owner have only 2 choices to reach your goal. You can enact the ritual early to create the spirit warrior, or wait until it dies of old age. The ritual needed undoubtedly kills the insect in the process, and as horrible and heartbreaking as it is to kill something you've bonded with after raising it from birth, the ritual itself is what makes the spirit warrior battle ready. After the magics of the ritual strengthen and grow the corpse, the mind of the owner and the deceased insect are then linked in an unbreakable bond. The only thing that could possibly sever this connection is the death of the owner. The final step involved after this is just to simply install a helmet inside of the undead corpse for the owner to wear when piloting their undead friend. I guess the proper word to use here might be morbid? As morbid as this may seem, these beings were originally created by the elves in an attempt to turn the tides of the Unhuman Wars against the orcish monsters that were being dropped off across countless other worlds. The one and only reason the Spirit Warrior became what it is today is because of one singular research assistant. They, by chance, had kept their batch of insects as pets during testing. Their whole group was struggling to figure out how to keep these things from running amok and killing everything in sight after the ceremonies transformed them. Until one day, when an insect from this researcher's batch was next in line for testing, it too began to rampage. Until the researcher threw herself in front of the insect and just begged it to stop. To everyone's surprise, it actually listened to her. Now, insect or not, having to go through that with anyone or any pet that I care about, especially after raising them since birth, is a horrible thing to think about. If you happen to find one abandoned or dormant somewhere out in space, you'll then at least have the chance to bond with it and use it after the fact, without having to go through that prior hardship. But if you fail though, there's a big chance you'll end up dead, or just have a massive stroke and become disabled after being rejected by the Spirit Warrior. So what do you think? Is it worth it? All in all, I had a ton of fun digging back into the SpellJammer setting. Learning and rediscovering everything has really made me wish that Wizards of the Coast would officially and canonically revisit this setting. There's so much potential here, and the writers of the past had so much to offer with this campaign that I will definitely be bringing more of it to YouTube. So, until next time, everyone, stay safe out there.